Originally built early in the 15th century, Aveton Gifford Bridge, with groups of arches crossing the various waterways, is technically a causeway rather than a bridge. Some of the 12 are now unnecessary or non-existent. There used to be 6 arches crossing the main river, but one is now completely on land. Before the bridge was built, there was an ancient ford between North and South Efford, with a ferry at high tide. And because he lost his livelihood, it is said that the ghost of the ferryman haunts South Efford, on the right-hand side of the photo. More recent buildings and mature trees now block the view of houses on the South Efford side. In 1932, William Damerel, the village blacksmith, moved his petrol pumps from outside the smithy in 4th Street to the bridge. He had originally begun selling petrol in cans from the smithy in 1918. The combination of river and marshland has always been rich in wildlife. Colonel Montague, the noted naturalist who moved to Kingsbridge on leaving the army, wrote, "As we were crossing the bridge over the River Avon at Aveton Gifford on the 9th of April 1911, we observed an osprey hawking for fish. At last its attention was arrested, and like the kestrel in search of mice, it became stationary, as if examining what had attracted its attention. After a pause of some time, it descended to within about 50 yards of the surface of the water, and there continued hovering for another short interval, and then precipitated itself into the water with such great celerity as to be nearly immersed. In 3 or 4 seconds the bird rose without any apparent difficulty, and carried off a trout of moderate size, and instead of alighting to regale upon its prey, it soared to a prodigious height and did not descend within our view." One of the more unusual residents of Aveton Gifford was the rector, William Daniel Pitman, who followed his father in the post and was rector here for 42 years. As a magistrate, the Reverend Pitman used to impose the maximum fine on his parishioners, and after a suitable period for uncertainty and anxiety, pay the fine himself. This view down 4th Street in Aveton Gifford shows that the 3-storey building at the end of the street, which forced traffic to turn left then right, has been replaced, having been demolished in the 1950s. 4th Street was spread with tar in 1921 in an attempt to keep the dust down. The 1920s view shows women in their Sunday best. Standing on the stone at the right are the younger Mrs. Clark and Edie Moore. To their right, in the doorway, are Mrs. Rymer and the elder Mrs. Clark. In the centre is Gertie Sanders, with Sid Clark, the babe in the pram, and behind them is Mrs. Sibley and her son Stan. Increasing traffic led to demands for a bypass as early as 1934, but although various routes through the rectory lands were suggested, none were used. After an unsuccessful experiment with traffic lights in the 1980s, the route was finally decided and built, opening on the 12th of September 1990, and 4th Street was promptly closed for a day in order to hold a street party. The lack of traffic running through the centre of the village enabled Aveton Gifford to win a Best Kept Village Award in 1994. The King's Arms Hotel was one of 6 inns which existed in Aveton Gifford in 1856, but by the end of the 20th century there were only 2, and the commercial inn, by then named the Taverners, has since closed, leaving only the Fisherman's Rest, the name by which the King's Arms is now known. The Fisherman's Rest started life in 1827 as the new inn, but by 1840 had changed to the King's Arms. By 1875 it was occupied by Fred Steer, and it remained in his family until the 1920s. Beer was brewed on the premises every Thursday. The inn was a focal point for many of the First World War activities, recruitment drives, horse sales and the like. However, the Steer family caused some slight problems to the local territorial army at the time. Their family pet was a parrot, which was put outside on the front lawn on fine days. Its reaction to the TA marching across the bridge was to shout out, "Halt!" an order which the men promptly obeyed, to the confusion and annoyance of the officer in charge. Once he traced the culprit, he instructed his men to ignore the parrot's shouts and only halt if he halted. After the Second World War, the name changed to the Ebb Tide, and then became the Fisherman's Rest as it is known today. The walnut tree on the right was later removed for road widening. There is a long-standing and never-ending dispute over the correct pronunciation of this village, although the Reverend C.C. Shaw in 1966 remarked that the records through the ages show an independence of mind characteristic of the inhabitants of this South Hams village, and a foreigner will find that none here really minds whether it is called Aveton, Orton or Awerton. Legal documents used to refer to Aveton alias Orton. This view is looking towards Townswell Lane down on the right, just past the shop which closed early in the 21st century, to be replaced by a temporary cabin by the Memorial Hall, and then more recently a permanent building. Tenants in Aveton Gifford without access to wells behind their cottages used to collect their water in buckets from Townswell, which had a hand pump fitted towards the end of the 19th century. Piped water was introduced around 1925, brought from a private reservoir at Court Barton. Bombs dropped by German raiders in January 1943 killed a child and caused much damage in the village, destroying houses on the opposite side of the road from Townswell, and also, amongst others, adjoining the shop and post office.